Okay, in this tutorial you're going to learn how to take two images and overlay them on top of one another. And so using that trick you can do things like overlay an image on top of a video or overlay two videos. It all uses the same technique. For this tutorial, make sure you have QuickTime installed. Also, this tutorial uses Mathematica 9, but it also works in other versions. So first, copy paste the link that's in the URL of the description, and then find my GitHub profile. Go to repositories, and then hit this video waveform player tutorial. There'll be some things in there that you need and some things that you don't need. Just click download zip, and then download that and unzip the files. And then once you open the folder, I have the folder already open. Just copy this address as text, minimize that, go to a new Mathematica window. I'm just going to get rid of this old stuff and say set directory. Put this within quotation marks, and when prompted, hit yes, and then evaluate that. So the first thing I'm going to do before I import the video is just check how many frames there are. So n frames equals import. The first argument of the import command is just the file name, frogkick62hertz.avi. The second argument you can specify from a lot of different options. So if you do the Mathematica help and search for AVI, that AVI help will give you lots of different options for the second argument that will return different types of information. In this case, we want the frame count. So it's 62 frames long. Now I want to actually import the frames themselves. So I'm going to call this vid frames equals import the same thing. Maybe I'll just copy paste it. And the second argument, instead of frame count, it's going to be image list, which is exactly what it sounds. It's just a list of images. Each image is a frame, and the length of that vid frames should equal 62. And that's good. And so my computer's slowing down, so I'm going to close some windows just for a sec. Okay. Alright, now let's just look at one of these video frames, for example. So that's the video. And if you watch the other tutorials about this, you're now probably sick of this frog video. Okay, we have our video loaded. Now what we're going to do is make a background image. And I'm going to show you a little trick to make basically a white background. So we're just going to use the table command, and I'm going to call this image data equals table, and the table is just a very compact way of writing a loop. Image data needs both length and width data, and we're going to define a pixel value, and we're just going to call it white, 255. That's just the value for white. So we're going to go from I goes from 1 to the height, and J goes from 1 to the width, and we'll define our height to be, let's say, whatever. It can be whatever you want, 300. And then width, let's say, equals 600. And then that's just going to give you a table of values. We don't really care about looking at it. But if you looked at it as a matrix, you'll just see it's just a table well, it's still not showing me that. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Just trust that it's there. It's just a table of intensity values. So what we're going to do is make our own background image. Background equals image. And image is just a function that will take whatever numerical data, as long as it's in the right form, and turn it into an image. So this should be a white box. That's the size that we specified. So we can also make this a black box if we really wanted to, or any color we wanted. So, but I'll keep it to be a white box maybe. Maybe I'll keep it as a black box because it's actually easier to see. So our background image is a black box there. So this image compose is really nice. So I don't know why they didn't just call it image overlay. So what you want is you want the bigger image in the first argument. So the bigger image is background. And the reason why I know it's a bigger image is I just remember what the size of my frog video is. But if you don't know this video size, you can just say vid frames. Let's say look at the first video frame, and so image dimensions of that. That's 512 width by 250 height. So our background image is bigger because it's 600 by 300. So I'm going to image compose our background. First argument is the first thing, and then you want to lay over it the video frame. Let's say the first frame of the video, and then you have to have another argument that tells Mathematica where to place it. And there's kind of a really tricky to learn syntax here, but instead of learning how to deal with that, I just use the scaled command. So scaled is just a function to convert values that go between 0 and 1. So if you say scaled, and then within scaled, you do a pair of curly brackets, and then it's basically x and y position coordinates. So scaled 0.5, 0.5 means go half of the width along the x-axis and half of the width along the y, and it's going to put your image overlay in the dead center. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And so we can do that. We can also do several commands, several overlays. So overlay 1 equals that. And then I can do another overlay to equals something else, for example, and then place some other image over this. So let's say we wanted to make a video. We wanted to save a video of this. So all we'd have to do is just put this within a table. So I'm going to say frames vid frames overlay equals table, because table is our fancy way of doing a for loop. And for the table command, we want to run from we want to have a frame iterator. We'll call that f. It can be called it whatever you want. It goes from 1 to n frames. And within this table command, we're going to define the actual frame, current frame, like vid frame equals vid frames. Actually, that's a little confusing. I'm just going to say current frame. Current frame equals vid frames f. So index out the f frame of our video frames. And then I'm going to say overlay equals literally this command here. So I'm going to copy paste this and modify it slightly. Overlay equals image compose background, and then instead of this, I'm going to say current frame. And of course you can change these values as you want. I'm going to get rid of this semicolon so the table gets filled with image data, and put a semicolon down at the bottom here. So that's going to take a few seconds to run. Now we can export that. Let's just check first of all whether it works. Vid frames overlay to, for example. So there it is. So we can export that as an AVI, some overlay, frog overlay, or whatever you want to call it, .avi, and then type in your vid frames overlay here, and then that can export that video for you. Now let's say you had two videos, for example, and let's say I loaded up another video. I don't have a second video in that video sample folder that I put online, but let's say you had another video of the same exact length, and that video was just a video of a waveform moving around in time. And that video is called frames 2. And I'll just show you the images. It's just a bunch of images of a sine wave developing through time. So this is just something I did before, but this is just to demonstrate. I'm not going to show you how to make this little these frames, but this is just to represent frames from another video that have the same length. So frames 2 from whatever second video you used has the same length as frames 1. So we're going to use multiple overlay commands. I'm going to copy and paste this, and then just show you how, let's say I'm going to call this overlay 1, and then I'm going to make another overlay frame, overlay 2, and I'm going to image compose using overlay 1 as now the background. And then the frame from my second video that I called frames 2. So that is the current frame of the second video, and I'm going to use the same structure over here and copy paste that, get rid of the extra comma, and I am going to try that. May or may not look good. It's working on it, but that's just to demonstrate. So I'm going to look at the first frame of this just to see how my overlay worked out. So looking at the first frame, yeah, so it's over here in this spot. So if I do a little manipulate player, just to interactively slide through this video, I just want to see what it looks like. Frame goes from 1 to n frames, and replace this with F. Oh, very importantly, this has to be, you have to put this 1 here so it does integer indexing. So you can overlay a waveform, for example. Okay, I hope this was useful.